we have there's been a long going feud between two player profiler, either alumni or current staff, Cody Carpentier and Josh Larkey. And Larkey is pro team Brian Robinson, winning the job out of Washington. And what, Robinson had 26 carries this past game? Ridiculous. But Cody is still team Antonio Gibson.
Right.
And I want you to take a side here, Matt.
That's easy.
Who are you going with? Antonio Gibson?
We'll just go to our dynasty rankings. In our dynasty rankings, Antonio Gibson, similar age, because Brian Robinson was a senior, didn't do anything in college till his final year, has reasonable size-adjusted speed, but 15th percentile burst and even worse agility. Impressed absolutely nobody at the Senior Bowl, impressed nobody at the Combine, impressed nobody through the process.
Except somehow the Washington Commanders.
Yeah,
somehow.
imagine if they had switched places, Pacheco and Brian Robinson. Imagine where Brian Robinson, he would have gone undrafted.
Right.
If he was at Rutgers, he would have gone undrafted. Do you know how many guys I've seen that have the Brian Robinson profile and go undrafted?
Literally, it's like the Tyler Algiers of the world.
Not even. Gus Edwards, his best comparison player on Player Profiler is Gus Edwards. What college did Gus Edwards go to? Rutgers. I'm not kidding you. You think I'm kidding? Go to Player Profile right now and look it up. Look it up. You think I'm kidding? That's who he is.
I don't think you're kidding.
I like Gus Edwards. I think he's a fun player. Gus the Bus, right?
But he doesn't catch passes. At least he has a nice yards per carry.
Right, he's on a bad team, and he doesn't catch passes. He's a between the tackles grinder, putting up 3.3 yards per carry every game.
He's a low end RB2 if he falls in the end zone.
Antonio Gibson can take passes and score touchdowns from the 50-yard line. He can take toss sweeps and score touchdowns from the 50-yard line. When you look at, a critical receiving metric for running backs like yards per route run, he's top 5 in the league. And literally, it's the 5 best receivers in the NFL out of the backfield. It's Kamara, it's McCaffrey, it's Gibson, it's Swift. It's like a who's who, right?
If you're there, it's
Breece
Antonio
Hall
Gibson.
and Antonio Gibson. That's like and it's like, whoa. You see some of these lists on data analysis, which is where you can sort all our metrics on Player Profile. And it's like, okay, well, what's going on? Well, I've seen this before. I've seen NFL coaches get it wrong time and time and time again. They get it wrong. They get it wrong. They get it wrong. I mean, they were playing Shi Smith over Terrace Marshall. And I'm like, what are you doing?
Shake my head.
It doesn't make sense. Even Robbie Anderson over Brand. Why would you play Robbie Anderson over Terrace Marshall? Terrace Marshall is just imagine a better version of Robbie Anderson in every way, and a more trusted teammate. Right. I mean, talk Robbie about just a guy that's just going to freelance out there, and you're never going to know where he is, which is why he can't command any targets in Arizona. Right. It's like, why do these coaches do this? It's either veteran deference, or it's just some sort of loyalty to draft capital, right? Some coaches don't fall for this, right? Some coaches, like Shanahan, that he has his many flaws, but that is one of the things that you love about him, is that he's going to put the 3rd round pick and the 6th round pick in a competition and just pick the best guy.
That's the Eli Mitchell formula, right?
Exactly. But that's not what's happening in Washington. So over time, either Gibson's going to go to a different team,
which we hope
or he's going to be thrust back into the starting role. And he was productive. So I understand that if you run your projections based on the depth chart, and you see that, okay, if he's the starter and McKissick is there, the projections, Josh's projections, I'm sure, favored Robinson. But we know that, McKissick misses games. Robinson misses games. Guys miss games. And then when given the opportunity, can this player give you a spike week? Can this player be useful in best ball? So a guy like Robinson, I'm never going to draft him in best ball. He's never going to be useful. A guy like Gibson will be. So the hope is that they change coaches. The
They get new ownership, new coaches,
teams. Yeah,
the whole bit.
They get new ownership in there, new coaches, and then they actually implement a meritocracy where they retest these guys in the 40 and they reevaluate their skill sets, and then they'll see exactly what everyone at the Senior Bowl, the Combine, and every has seen the difference between these two players. So longer term, I don't see much of a future for Brian Robinson beyond a Gus Edwards type role, but anything can happen with Gibson just based on the team he lands on and the coaching staff. So there's a lot more upside.
Former wide receiver who, as you mentioned, just high juke rate, able to catch the passes. I mean, we saw when McKissick was out last year, Antonio Gibson, top 5, top 7 running back?
You can't explain it, right? I mean, there are players that I contend if they were used differently early in their career, they would be viewed totally differently. They would be viewed as superstars, like Jerick McKinnon, right? These are players that, yes, he tore his ACL and
he was brought into San Francisco to be the superstar, but
right. Remember how his dynasty value popped over the summer?
Oh my God.
His dynasty value was a straight line up that summer, his first year in San Francisco. And I can guarantee you there is one team out there who sees Brian Robinson, has, for however he's done it, subverted Antonio Gibson. And they're like, we got to get Gibson when he becomes a free agent. And they believe in him like San Francisco believed in McKinnon. Right. And McKinnon, again, hopefully doesn't tear his ACL like McKinnon, and you're going to see his dynasty value just. But the cool thing is, we've seen this before. We've seen all these movies before. Like we're like the IMDb. We've seen all the movies, so our dynasty rankings have all this baked in. That's why Gibson has twice the value of a Robinson. And so if you were kind of new to all this, and you're playing fantasy for the first time and you go to our dynasty rankings, some of them you're like, this is kind of weird. Where are they getting all this? And they're like, we're getting this from the comps, right? And Gibson has incredible comps, both athletically and with his efficiency metrics. And all these comps for Brian Robinson are dynasty duds.
Antonio Gibson, Player Profiler's comp is Joe Mixon. Holy buckets.
Do you remember how long it took Mixon to seize the primary back job?
Gio Bernard was there, and it was just
3 years.
My God.
He had his McKissicks and he had his P. Ryans the whole time.
Yep.
Yeah.
This is the Joe Mixon formula.
It is. It's the Mixon McKissick formula.
I like it. Name of the podcast. There we go.
Yes,
okay,
indeed.
Let's move on.
Did Mixon have a good week this recently?
Will Mixon? He came off the bye.
No, I know. So, recently though, has Mixon had any good weeks lately?
Oh, any good weeks?
Any like a 5 touchdown game or anything like that? 7 touchdowns in a game,
pretty close to
maybe
a
11
record,
touchdowns
right?
in a game. Did he do something like that?
That would be close to a fancy record, wouldn't it be?
Yeah. Well, who has the record? Is it Kamara?
It's something. Yeah, Kamara I think is 6.
Something. Yeah, he had something. He was challenged. He was a pretty good week. Pretty good.
Joe Mixon pretty good. Antonio Gibson also pretty good.